Hey ladies, welcome back to the show. On today's episode, we are going to talk about this idea of mindset, more specifically this victim mentality mindset, but when it comes to our health and how it can impact our health outcomes. So much of what we do when it comes to our health, we believe it's just taking action and doing things, but there's also this mindset component of it. And so today we're going to talk about this specific mindset component where we may feel not very empowered to take control of our health. We may feel that we're in a place where we're blaming others or circumstances. And we may feel like there's so many things that are out of our control. And so that may really hinder us from taking any action and moving forward when it comes to our health, wellness, and self-care goals. So in this episode, we're going to really talk about what that mindset means, not in general, because I'm not a therapist, it's not in my scope of practice, but what it means when it comes to our health goals. And especially if we're having a hard time moving forward with them. We're going to talk about some phrases that may show you or just kind of have a little bit of acknowledgement of what that looks like when it comes to health. And then lastly, we'll talk about some strategies that you can start to think about when it comes to how we can maybe change or reframe some of the mindset work when it comes to having this victim mentality. So listen in and we'll talk more about it. Welcome to the Whole Health Empowerment Project podcast. This show is for women over 40 who are trying to create balance in their life when it comes to food, body, self-care, and wellness. You struggle to put yourself first, to maintain consistency when something isn't perfect, or maybe you feel like you don't have enough time or willpower to achieve the goals you desire. I'm your host, Trisha Stefankowitz, registered dietitian, nutritionist. I've worked with women like you achieve their goals by focusing on the next best step, no matter how messy, and meeting you where you are right now. In this show, you'll learn practical information, actionable strategies, and mindset tweaks so that you can feel healthier, more comfortable in your body, and make choices that work for your life. Come join me in failing forward, one imperfect step at a time, into the journey of health, wellness, and self-care. Welcome to your new project. When it comes to talking about victim mentality, I think we all know what that is. It's that feeling that you feel like you're being mistreated by others or that you lack control. It often manifests in this feeling of helplessness, hopelessness, resentfulness, blaming, complaining. We may have developed this mindset as a response to some kind of trauma that we had in our lives or just some other circumstance where you felt like you maybe didn't have a lot of control. And when it comes to our health, sometimes I feel like that sense of hopelessness can be very resonant, especially if you're in a place where you're not making a lot of progress. So when we talk about this, it's not meant to like judge having a victim mentality. We all have areas in our life where we've done that. We've all had periods in our life where maybe that was something that we really relied on. I know I have, but this episode isn't meant to be a judgment of a behavior that's good or bad, but more so trying to tease out if there's any personal responsibility that you can take when it comes to your health, wellness, and self-care goals. Instead of putting it out that you have no responsibility towards it, just kind of re-looking at it to see if there is a potential that there is something that you can do. Again, when it comes to our health, some of the more common examples associated with this victim mentality can be things or phrases that sound like this. I can't help it. It's in my genes. Nothing I do seems to make a difference. It's not fair. that I have to do this when someone else doesn't have to do this. There's nothing I can do to change my situation. I've tried everything, but nothing works. It's too hard to make healthy choices. I'm too busy. I'm too stressed. I'm too tired to take care of myself. I'm very unlucky when it comes to my health. I think we all can admit that we've all said these phrases. I mean, sometimes I don't even say them, I think them. And we're all in this together, including me. I am on this health journey with you. I am in a place where I am trying to regain my health. And so, again, this isn't meant to have any judgment. It's more to identify to see if you're using any of these phrases. I have a 6-year-old, and there's nothing more challenging than when you hear your child or you hear someone close in your life say some of these phrases. And then it's very easy to be like, oh my gosh, no, you have control. You can do this. But when it comes to ourselves, it's much harder, I believe, to be able to recognize some of the things that you're thinking, some of the phrases that you're saying out loud. And then it's also hard to figure out what to do about that. And so that's why we're going to talk about it, because so what? Say you do say these things, what can you do about it? And again, as part of this, all of this and talking about these things is a way that can provide you a little bit more hope. And one of the things about this victim mentality when it comes to our health is that it may leave you feeling that you're in a place that you feel that you can't do anything about it, that you're helpless, that you're hopeless, that you find yourself blaming other people. You may find yourself complaining a lot because you feel so hopeless. You may be resigned that this is your life now and there's nothing you can do about it. You may identify as being really defensive or feeling left out, or that all of this, when it comes to your health, is someone else's fault. And so when you blame others, it takes away any responsibility that you can have, and you lose the power to do anything about it. And so if you resign yourself that, oh, this is my health, then if you are 40 years old, then what does that mean? If you live until you're 80 or 90 or 100, you're just never going to do anything when it comes to your health. I doubt that. I think that you're going to probably do something, but you're just kind of stuck in a place that it's a little bit harder to see the forest through the trees. And so it's identifying that this is a belief system that you developed, perhaps related to many things in our lives, in your life, and trying to figure out if this is something that you want to change right now, or maybe you want to change in the future. But the first step is kind of identifying if there's any of the things that you say that limit your progress forward, and recognizing that you do say some of these things or you think some of these things, and then start to really get to the root of that belief system. That's where you're going to start to see some of that change. We all have reasons why we adapt this mentality. For me, I know that I've adopted this as a trauma response, but certainly I see my son doing this and I hear him saying things that he can't do. So I'm sure he probably learned that from me, or feeling like he didn't have a lot of power. And I think it's really easy to not blame ourselves and to have someone else be the villain and we can be the victim. But one of the things that happens with that is that we then don't take any responsibility for our own life. We externalize that responsibility. And then any of the health problems that comes up, we believe are related to external factors, not related to us. And we often feel like it's beyond our control. And so the end result then becomes that we get stuck and we find it hard to move forward with the positive things that we're trying to make on our life. And so that's the crux of it, is that sure, we may use it to cope. We may use it for years. We may be doing it for our whole life. But then how do we get to a place that we can change that so that we don't feel like we have no control, that we don't resign ourselves to having this passive role in our own life, and so that we don't move forward. I mean, having this mindset can really lead to not having any motivation to move forward with our health choices. It can lead to really having a lot of stress related to it. I know that was something very common for me at times in my life, that feeling of being so disempowered that it felt so stressful and that I felt so stuck. And so maybe that is something that you feel too. And then overall, it's this feeling of disempowerment, and that we have a very hard time to improve our lives because we've essentially taken away all of our power when it comes to making any progress with our health goals. Some of the impacts of all of this when it comes to our health is that when we adopt this victim mentality, it can perpetuate other negative patterns of behavior. We could have unhealthy coping mechanisms. We could be saying, like, maybe we are going to eat more than we normally would, or we're overeating to avoid our feelings. Or maybe we're using substances to numb any of the things we feel like. One of the other challenges is that we may feel so disempowered that then we're not seeking medical care. And so then it's really hard to address any of the underlying issues that are happening. And then therefore we're unable to take proactive steps to improve our health. And so ultimately all of these feelings then exacerbate any of the symptoms related to our health and just prolong our suffering. And so that's why we're going to talk about this today and really start to figure out what are some things that you can do to change this, because we know that we all feel it. We know that there's probably been times in our lives where we have felt very victimized, more so than other times. And we also know that it's something that can hold us back when it comes to our health and when it comes to feeling like we're having a very hard time moving forward because we feel so disempowered. And so the whole goal of this podcast is so that you can start to feel more empowered and that you can start to feel that you have less hopelessness and that you feel like you are able to move forward, no matter how small that action can be, and take a step towards moving towards achieving the goals that you may have right now. Breaking free from this victim mentality requires a shift in your mindset and a commitment to taking ownership of your health. And so it doesn't matter how big that shift is. It's just that you are becoming cognizant of it and moving forward over time to get to a place that you can make progress versus staying in a place where you're not taking any action at all. And again, you may not feel like you're in a position that you can feel empowered at this time. So let's talk about some strategies that can hopefully help you get closer to feeling a little bit more empowered than you are today. First of all, taking ownership of your health. So really starting to figure out and recognize that you have the power to influence your outcomes through the choices that you make. And so obviously there's going to be times in your life where you do not have a lot of control. You may be someone who is undergoing chemo, radiation, or just in the middle of a health flare. And I get it. There's not a lot perhaps that you can do. But really trying to figure out if there is a spot or a place that you can start to empower yourself to take control of your health and well-being if you are in a place that perhaps you can make a little bit more of an impact than you think you can today. So really trying to figure out and reframe this idea of being a victim of circumstance, that you're feeling more empowered to take control of your health and well-being. So that's the first one, is just kind of looking at your life and trying to see if there is a place that you can be a little bit more empowered. I would say questions to identify where you are feeling disempowered would be kind of focusing on things that where in your life are you not really taking any responsibility? So where is a part of your life that you feel like you are constantly comparing yourself to others, or you are looking at others that seem to have what you want, or you seem to feel like that person has it easier or more fortunate because they have resources? What's coming into my head as I'm thinking about, when people are doing all the like weight loss goals, and then you're thinking, well, they have more time than I do. They aren't as stressed as I am. And so maybe that's where you concentrate and you think, okay, that's where I'm really struggling. And then what does it look like for you to feel empowered to take action in that? If you find yourself using phrases such as, it's not fair, I wish I could have that, but I have no choice, do you start to focus on things that are what you lack versus what you already have? So really start to explore that a little bit more, because right now we're trying to figure out where is it in your life that you are feeling disempowered, and first recognizing it so that you can start to figure out how to shift from that mindset to a mindset where you feel a little bit more empowered to take action. Perhaps you're somebody who feels like you are so easy to blame others or blame external circumstances. So perhaps, again, your external circumstances could be, I had to work late, or I was too stressed, or I was too tired, or you're having a constant setback in that realm, or just that you're feeling powerless or helpless to change a situation. So think about that when in your own life and start to figure out where you find yourself either thinking or saying some of these negative thoughts. And then once you're able to really tease that out, or if any of those have resonated with you, start to challenge any of those negative beliefs that are perpetuating that mentality. So instead of focusing on the limitations or the external factors that are out of your control, which could be your environment, your job, maybe you're limited in ways that you're able to move. So start thinking about, are you using some of those external factors as a way to keep you limited, or is it real, right? Is it something that's real that's happening? Once you're able to figure that, then you can start to focus on what you can do to improve your health and well-being. I think one of the things that also helps here is to have some gratitude, because a lot of times when I find myself in this place where I'm doing this negative thinking, and especially if I'm in a negative thinking loop about all the things that feel wrong or where I'm limited, it's very helpful to sit down and be like, okay, well, I'm grateful for this, and I'm grateful for this, and I'm grateful for this. And what that does, it can help me reframe my perspective. So instead of feeling like I'm lacking in something, it actually creates a little bit more abundance for me. And it can really help me very easily shift into this sense of abundance and appreciation for all that I have, no matter how small it may feel to you. When you see it written down and you can really get a sense of that appreciation, I think that kind of helps shift the perspective. And I think it also helps get out of that negative mindset loop that perhaps you may be in. And I don't know if that was helpful for you, but that's certainly something that helps me. One of the other things is to really take the time to examine your thoughts and beliefs that you have about yourself and the world around you. Because so much of our health and wellness is based on the stories that we've told ourselves that may or may not be true. They are the beliefs that we have about ourselves and the people around us. And so it's identifying if you're feeling any of these things and if you're having any of this thinking that can be really self-defeating and that maybe is even holding you back. And it's important to identify these patterns because you need to kind of have the understanding that you are thinking this way in order to challenge them and change them. I know for me, I always talk about on this podcast about having a therapist. I've had a therapist for a really long time. And what I find helpful is that there's these beliefs that I think a lot of times just get so in my brain, and I never vocalize them. I never did vocalize them until I start talking to a therapist. And then once you start saying them out loud, it just gives a little bit more recognition. And for the longest time, I didn't have that recognition. And so these negative beliefs would just be in my mind all the time. And I never even thought to challenge them because I never even stopped to think that I was thinking them. And so, of course, then it's hard to change that, right? And so when it comes to all of this mindset stuff, I think it's really helpful that you find some kind of support. And that can be from anybody. It can be from your friends or from your family. Or you can also seek the support of a mental health professional like I did to help give you guidance and to really challenge some of those beliefs that you have rather than perpetuating them and living with them, especially if it's something that's not even true. Because over time, that will hopefully help to empower you in all areas of your life, and then also including your health. Something else that can work is having this mindset shift that instead of dwelling on your past grievances or your past injustices when it comes to your health, because I do know that there is places in our life where we may feel helpless when it comes to our health. But trying to figure out if you're able to adopt a strategy that you can focus your time and energy on finding a solution versus being in the part where you don't feel like you can do anything. And that also may be a process. I mean, certainly when I found out that I fractured my hip, it wasn't like all of a sudden I could find a solution. I think ultimately I did find a solution, but it took me a while to not feel so victimized. And that's probably part of my process too, right? And so again, it's not to judge that if you're in a place that you're really having a hard time moving forward to finding a solution, that just might be where you're at. And there's no good or bad in this, but trying to figure out over time if there will be a solution to that problem, and then trying to take positive steps towards improving that problem and improving your health so that you feel like you have more control over your future as opposed to this is it, this is my life, this is forever. Adopting a problem-solving mindset and being open to trying new approaches or strategies can be really helpful to get you out of that rut that you might be in. I think about a lot of times people who are diagnosed with like diabetes or high blood pressure, and it feels so overwhelming because there feels like there's just too many things to do. And I do believe that you kind of just have to navigate that news first until you can get to a place that you feel like you're more ready to find a solution. And this also could just be personality. You could just have a personality that maybe you are more driven towards results, and you may have a personality that you may really thrive in victimhood. And so again, this may be just part of your makeup, but knowing that over time, if you're unable to really find a solution for that diabetes or for that high blood pressure, it doesn't go away. It stays there until you figure out what the solution is for you. And so I think that's the bigger picture here of what we're talking about, is so that you don't feel so stuck that your health just continues to decline, but rather you start to feel like you're more empowered to take action so that you can either keep your disease state where it's at now, or perhaps you can hopefully prevent it from getting as bad as quickly as if you did nothing at all. And so really starting to try to figure out if there is a solution that can work for you and what that solution looks like. And then lastly, when we're talking about strategies, being kind to yourself and practicing self-compassion, because it's very overwhelming especially if you're making decisions about your health and you feel like there's not a lot you can do. And recognizing that all of this, when it comes to mindset, takes a lot of time and effort. And it's really important to celebrate any progress that you've had along the way. That's one of the harder things when it comes to health, I believe, is that mindset piece, because It's very easy to celebrate these victories like, oh, I lost 5 pounds and oh my gosh, I ate all my fruits and veggies today. But the mindset piece is one of those things that it just takes time. And so especially, it's really hard to celebrate those victories because it's much easier to focus on, yes, I've lost weight, or yes, I've eaten what I said I was going to eat today. But the mindset piece usually takes some time, and it usually takes us, in terms of effort, we're making pretty consistent progress and consistent effort to get to that goal. And so that usually feels like that's something that happens a little bit more down the road. And so practicing this idea of being compassionate with yourself, that you're not there yet, but that you're going to be there and you're making these decisions every day to get there, is something to really keep in mind and to keep you focused on what you want. So in conclusion here, knowing that this victim mentality is a formidable barrier to achieving your health, wellness, and self-care goals, it can feel really overwhelming to get to a place where you are ready to achieve optimal health, but it's not insurmountable. There is something that you can do about it. And by recognizing that, by taking proactive steps to overcome it and to feel more empowered when it comes to your health, and taking steps every day to do that, you can embark on a journey towards vitality and greater health and greater progress when it comes to your own health goals. Remembering also that you are not defined by your circumstances or the limitations that you have right now, and that you have the power to shape your own identity and your health destiny in spite of everything that might feel like is coming at you right now. Recognizing that it isn't forever, hopefully, and that there is something that over time that you can do. And that's the goal here, is recognizing if there is anything that you can take personal responsibility for when it comes to your health, wellness, and self-care goals. I know that no matter how disempowered you feel right now, there's probably something that you can do that can make you feel good. Whether that is writing something down about how grateful you are, whether it is writing down just what you're doing today, whatever it is for you, whether it's taking a walk, whatever you're capable of, I know that there's something that you can do today that you feel a little bit more empowered when it comes to your health. And remembering that progress and action, no matter how small it is, will always win in the long term versus being perfectionistic and not doing anything at all. So remembering that all of this, when it comes to our health, wellness, and self-care, is a lifelong journey, not a race to the finish line. You're going to have periods in your life that you feel like you are rocking your health, and you're going to have periods where you feel like, oh shit, this is so hard. And that is normal. And so if you're in a place right now that you feel like it's so hard, how can you feel a little bit more empowered today that you can take control of your health? Because I know there is one small thing that you can do that can help you. If you need some help, you can go over to my Instagram at Whole Health Empower, and I have some freebies over there. And one of them is 5 things you can do today if you're over 40. And maybe that's the first step that you can take. And some of those are as simple as taking vitamin D. So if you need a little kick and you need something that is going to be a quick win, go over there and grab that freebie. So I will see you guys back here next week. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you found value in this podcast, please rate, review, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Don't forget to share this episode with your friends. Together, we can take tiny, imperfect steps towards creating the whole health we desire and deserve. Don't forget to grab your freebie. You can find the link in your show notes or over at triciard.com. I'll see you back here next week.